Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gbenga Aborowa, yesterday accused the State House of Assemblies of obstructing the process of amendment to the 1999 Constitution. Gbenga Aborowa said the National Assembly might not be able to complete the ongoing amendment process before the expiration of its term. President of the Senate, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, on his part, urged the Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, to prevail on his colleague governors to encourage the respective Houses of Assembly to support local government autonomy and promptly transmit back to the National Assembly the responses and the bills sent to them on constitutional amendment. Now, joining me live, PHQ tonight is Professor Paul Ananaba, a senior advocate of Nigeria. One welcome to you, Professor, and thanks for joining us in PHQ.
Yeah, good evening.
Now, Professor, what's your assessment of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria? How adequate or inadequate is it in meeting the yearnings and aspirations of over 200 million Nigerians?
Well, the 1999 Constitution was the creation of the military. And if you recall, it was a committee led by the late Justice Nick Itobi that was put up by General Absalom. And they had 30 days to put together what we have as the 1999 Constitution. So you've had people give it several names. It has several deficiencies. And as we speak, there has been 4 alterations of that Constitution. So if you bought the 1999 Constitution, say in 1999 or 2000, you will find out that the Constitution, the version you have, will not be correct by now. So you have to have all the alterations before you can say you have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999. To that extent, it is worrisome, it's a problem. Even though the National Assembly had gone the way of saying they want to amend the Constitution, my prescription was that we should have a fresh Constitution and not the bits and pieces that are being amended. That Constitution does not truly reflect what Nigerians say and desire as of now. It came into effect by a military decree. And the military have their military ways of doing things. A constitution should be autochthonous, should come from us. That's why the Constitution says, we the people. So to some extent, that Constitution does not say what is true when it says we the people, when it was actually foisted by the military. I'm not saying that it has no good effects. The Constitution has held us together. It has good provisions, but that's not the desired Constitution for Nigeria as of now. And that's why you see efforts by various National Assembly sessions trying to amend or trying to alter the Constitution. So there's need for a fresh Constitution, or what we have, what we're discussing now is amendment.
So, now, Prof, yes. Prof, talking about amendment, like you said, you did mention the timing, how it was made in a hurry by the Abdulsalam administration, military government, and also the Constitution itself handed over to us by the military. It's not a people constitution, but next year will make it 24 years of uninterrupted democratic experience since 1999. So why haven't we been able to adjust and amend those parts that are not working for the generality of Nigerians? And in your opinion, what areas really need do we really need to adjust so that this constitution works for Nigerians?
Well, Section 9 of that Constitution, 1999, provides for amendments. And that is why we are talking about the amendments. Now, why do we need amendments? Society is dynamic. The law is dynamic. As we practice the Constitution, there will naturally be areas that we need to adjust. The American model Constitution has gone over 14 amendments, even though it's taking longer times to get the amendments done. But they are man-made. And a greater reason why there is amendment or there is alteration is because the military brought that document into effect. And the military is centralized, a centralized organization, bringing up a federal constitution. So there was just a mix-up between federalism and unitarianism, and you know that it doesn't fit. That is the problem. I give you an example. Look at the police. We now have a centralized police force in a federation. That is not acceptable globally. You look at the evolution of powers, Section 162, in line with the evolution of power between the states and the federal government. And people are arguing today that the local governments do not exist or shouldn't exist, or that the appendages of the state. It doesn't matter the great divide, you take the argument. But it shows that there's no clear, look at the exclusive list, look at the concurrent list, and there's no clearly stated residual list in the Constitution. So these are the challenges of this particular Constitution, because the military character of the promulgators is still holding sway. So these are some of the areas we need to amend, alter, or indeed to have a fresh constitution covering them. Look, Chapter 2 is there's still a debate as to whether it is justiciable. Why will the main reasons why the government exists not be justiciable? We will have to run to African Charter or some other international instrument to try to enforce education, housing, and all that. So that is why we're having problem with the Constitution, and that's why we need these amendments. That's why we need the alterations and possibly a fresh Constitution.
Professor, I'm glad you've mentioned some of these touchy issues, and we'll definitely get into them in the course of our conversation. You talked about why we need this amendment, and I believe the Senate has heard the yearnings and the voice of the Nigerian people saying, look, this structure doesn't work. We've had several national conferences, but it still always points down to the Constitution. Now, the chairman of the National Assembly, this National Assembly, chairman of the National Assembly Constitution Review Committee, Senator Ovie Omoagege, last week said 25 houses of assembly have refused to act on the 44 constitutional bills being proposed to them. Professor, what might be the reason behind this?
Well, there are several reasons. By Section 9, you will need the approval of at least 2/3 of the states, which will be around 24 states or thereabout. And when 25 states say out of 36 are not agreeing or acting in a positive manner, it means that all the efforts for constitutional amendments may not be realized. If you consider that over ₦1 billion may have been voted for that exercise, and the yearnings of Nigerians may not have been met, it is a serious cause for worry. One of the reasons may be the local governments. Remember, no state governor will like the local governments to be a third tier of government. No state government will like that proposal for the local governments to be autonomous, because it is the money of the local government that keeps many states alive and going. So no state will allow its, of course, the state assemblies are largely controlled by the governors. So
yes.
No governor will allow such amendments. Those are the primary reasons. And you remember.
Now, are these not, sorry to interrupt you, Professor, are these not justiciable? Can't they be taken to court to enforce this local government autonomy, because it's, the Constitution states that it's the third tier of government.
Well, to my knowledge, the Constitution says that a local government system shall be established and preserved. So there should be local government system. But the Constitution does not so clearly call them a tier of government. But that, my understanding is that by establishing a local government system, the Constitution desires that the local government will be autonomous and effective. And you know that the local governments are closer to the people. So much of the failure of infrastructure and governance today is because local government systems have not been thoroughly left to get their source funds directly and be accountable. And you look at Section 162, where of the Constitution, where there has to be a joint account with the state, and then the states will now make laws for make appropriations in a way, or give local governments their own part, which in reality doesn't happen.
Now, Professor, there's some people in some quarters, they've said, if you give this local government chairman more money, they're just going to, that they've not been accountable for the little they're getting, that it's been corruptly used, and if you give them more money and more autonomy, they're going to mismanage it. What do you feel, what's your take on that line of argument?
Yeah, that's a perspective, that's an argument, and it's also well placed. But the states that now take this money, are they sent? How many of these states have actually used those monies patriotically for the state, for the citizens? So why don't we then bring the intention of the Constitution clearer by giving the local government the allocations and holding them accountable? And let me tell you, if a person is in a local government, it is easy for him to hold his councillor, his local government chairman, accountable than traveling to the state headquarters where security men will not even allow them to come here to talk about holding the governor accountable. So these are part of the failures of our governance, not allowing the local government to function effectively. We've not even tried them effectively. How many of the local state governments have done well, even when they take all those money? You look at our rural areas, are largely undeveloped because the local governments are more or less handicapped in the name of that they should be attentive, and which I think is not right.
Now, Professor, back to this issue of constitutional amendments. It seems like the state houses of assembly are holding the yearnings and aspiration of majority of Nigerians hostage. With this, what seems to be a quid pro quo, deal. Okay, you do this and I'll do this for you, but they seem to be in the majority. And then ordinary Nigerians are like, okay, we elected the representatives in Abuja. They are the people's representative. We've asked them to do this, to amend the constitution. They've done it, and they have these 44 important items. Why are you stalling? What would it take to break this impact? And how independent this deadlock, and how independent are these state houses of assembly? Quite a number of observers have referred to them as rubber stamps of the state executives.
I can't recall any state that will vote against their governor. Otherwise, many of the governors ought to have been impeached by now. Even when you see majority of the legislators being in an opposing local party, they cannot even really checkmate the governor. Our governors have largely so much powers today, and you know it. So our governors are so overbearing and wealthy and strong. They control so much money. And it's much more like if it's important thing. It's not a discussion of equals. You have seen where some state legislators have tried to assert their rights and independence, and the state government will shut the assembly for a long time.
So it's basically, he who feeds you controls you.
Exactly.
So where does that leave ordinary Nigerians?
It even starts from the candidacy. Before you go to the House of Assembly, in many constituencies, the governor has to endorse you. If the governor does not allow you, he many times give you money to buy fund your election, you will not be there. So you can't come there and be trying to rub shoulders with the governor. Many of the state assembly people who have tried know where they ended up. So the system does not protect those legislators. And that's the issue of trading is the point. That's why, because of the local government issues, the governors are not likely to support the state local governments to pass those amendments. Because they don't want to lose grip of the local government funds and the grip of the local government. So it's a question of throwing both the baby and the water away, rather than a negotiation. And you could see that the Senate president recently called on Kaduna State Governor to help lobby the colleagues. Maybe that could have been done even before the amendments were sent to the local governments, to the states, and state assemblies. Why didn't even the National Assembly have a team or some type of negotiation with the Governors Forum and reach agreements? So that's what happens when we do not do some certain homework and then insist on the letters of the law alone. So that's my take on that.
Now, Professor, democracy by its name says it's government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But Nigerians will be wondering that, you know, it's supposed to be our government, those we elect to office, we give them the Commonwealth to make decisions on our behalf. So in a situation where state houses of assemblies are almost at the beck and call of their chief executives, these governors, what will it take to break this stranglehold and reach our democratic experience? So there's some sort of oversight and checks and balances from the state houses of assembly to their executive governors.
We all have our PVCs now. We need to vote, and we should vote the right candidates. Most of the people in these houses of assembly are people the governor supports. You see that when there are local government elections, you see that the governor's party will win all the seats. And the act of having the elections on different days, I mean, the governorship and the House of Assembly elections on the same day, has its demerits. if elections were to be, would have been held on the same day all through, maybe it will reduce this incident. So on the day of the election, when people go to vote, they vote governor and the House of Assembly the same way, because then the governor's candidate will likely win, starting from the primaries. And I feel it, and I know many Nigerians feel it, because many of these amendments are useful for the growth and development of this country.
Absolutely.
But you see, the water and the baby will be thrown away because of maybe just one item of amendment. You remember, it's not new, during President Obasanjo's time, because of the third term agenda clause, all the good provisions of that amendment were thrown away.
So are we likely to see the same happen to these 44 amendments? Because the Speaker did talk about the little time they have left at this ninth assembly. Is it something that can be picked up by the next assembly? What are the implications of this?
I have no sympathy for the National Assembly. This amendment has started long ago. Why are they now crying about it? We are in December. In a week or so is Christmas. We'll come back in January. As we are coming back, taking a higher level. We are looking at elections few days away for the presidency, serious election, even for the National Assembly. Many of the National Assembly members you're talking about would have been busy trying to come back to survive the elections. Then you are talking about an amendment which you did not do all this while. Then those for our state assembly are also struggling for the elections. All these elections will come to an end in early March. As it is ending, there are election petitions up and down in many areas, and people want to fight those. So what is the time between March and 29th May that you will conclude an amendment? So talking about amendment as we speak, for me, it sounds like rhetoric, which may not materialize.
Now, Professor, yes.
When during President Obasanjo's time.
Now, Professor, finally, before I let you go, you talked about this very important issue in your opening statement. You talked about local government autonomy. You also mentioned the issue of state police. We've seen a proliferation of, what seems to be states trying to, form state police of their own. There's security outfits like the Agu in the east and Amoteco and all of that. But lots of Nigerians will tell you it's inadequate. And they also say, we're not ripe to have state police because the chief executives, this all-powerful governors will make them just answer and do their own biddings. What's your take on this, looking at the present state of insecurity in the nation as a whole? Is it time for us to start looking at towards state police?
State police, it will be helpful. This proliferation of vigilante groups and regional security are helpful, but they are not final solution for me. We need to have formal state police, well-funded. If we have that, the need for regional policing in any form of vigilantes may not arise. People are raising this regional police, and rightly now, because the police seem not to have the solutions to the continuous killing and violence. And you know that by Section 214 of the Constitution, the state governor has no control over the police, even the commissioner in his state. So why would he fold his arms and violence will continue every day? People will be killed and maimed and raped and kidnapped. So that's why that is happening. So the amendment is important. State police is required. Regional police will be stronger and great temptation for dismemberment of the country than the state police. One state cannot easily decide to stand off with the entire country. But if there is a regional police, it could begin to lead to regional army and regional agitation. So I think that if we have state police, many of these regional organizations will begin to rethink about it, very likely.
Okay, fine place to end the conversation. Thank you very much, Professor Paul Ananaba, a senior advocate of Nigeria. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Politics Headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up on PHQ, we will be discussing the controversy over the Central Bank of Nigeria's cash withdrawal policy. Stay with us.